Hi there, it's great to see you. Thanks for stopping by today. I really appreciate it. I'm John Merriman, and this is your Tuesday morning guitar song. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. It started out as a radio show in 1944. And of course, it was Ozzie and Harriet's family, the Nelsons, playing themselves in a loosely based on reality situation comedy that happened every week. Now, Ricky Nelson joined the show when he was 8 years old in 1948, and it was still on radio. And then the show transitioned to television in 1952 and then completed its run in 1966. By the time it got done, Ricky Nelson was 26 years old. He had spent a great deal of his early childhood and his early adulthood in front of the American public growing up. And through all those years, America became kind of the extended family of the Nelson family. Each week, America would tune in to see their comings and goings, take part in their joys and their tears, their growing pains. And America would root them on for 22 years. Now, I wanted to do a Ricky Nelson show, but honestly, I knew nothing about Ozzie and Harriet. I didn't know why this show even existed in the first place. I didn't know why in 1944 someone thought it was a good idea to put their family on the radio. By the time I got done researching, listening to the interviews and reading literature, I was really left in awe of this family, sincerely. I was left in awe of their continual and their constant good-naturedness, by their actual love and care and concern for each other as family members, way beyond this TV thing. Through all those years, they gave so much of their life just to keep America company, just to be there to show us that it was okay to be normal and you can get on in a calm, loving way with life if you just do reasonable things every week. So who were Ozzie and Harriet anyway, and why did this show exist? So it all centers around Ozzie. In the 1920s, Ozzie was like the all-American boy. He was intelligent, he was handsome, he was highly creative, he was an Eagle Scout at 13, he was a star quarterback. He went on to Rutgers University and then on to law school. And then when he was in law school, because he was so highly creative, he started a dance band, a big band that was very popular those days. Well, through a twist of fate, the Ozzie Nelson Orchestra became very popular. It started getting some national radio exposure, and Ozzie had to choose either law school or the band. He chose the band. He dedicated his life to making this band popular. And he started gaining in more popularity with more radio exposure. And then he hired a female vocalist because boy and girl duets were very popular in that day, and he wanted a female vocalist to sing these duets with. So he hired a semi-famous singer of the day, Harriet Hilliard. And they started singing these boy-girl duets. And they had incredible chemistry together. They were just a joy to watch, and America fell in love with them. As a couple, they became an American sweetheart couple, Ozzie and Harriet, and the Ozzie Nelson Orchestra, for singing these wonderful duets to each other. Well, they started a romantic relationship, and they got married in 1935. And then in 1944, the war was still raging. America needed more warm, fuzzy entertainment. So a radio promoter asked Ozzie and Harriet if they'd like to do a radio show from their home with their family. Now, Ozzie said yes, but he said, I have some conditions. I want to write the show, I want to direct the show, and I want to produce the show. And that's the way it stayed until the end in 1966. It was all Ozzie. He was the creative force. He was the writer, the director, and the producer. Okay? So that's how the show came into existence. Let's get back to Ricky now. So Ricky joined when he was 8, and he kind of inherited the musical talent of Ozzie and Harriet. And he started performing on the show every now and then within the dramatic context of that week. But Ozzie saw something there, and he eventually gave Ricky his own musical slot at the end of a show every now and then with his band, just to do a song, like a music video. And that propelled Ricky Nelson to huge national fame. Ricky Nelson became the first American teen idol. In 1960, Life magazine actually coined the term for Ricky Nelson, teen idol. Because, you know, Elvis was the biggest thing of the day, of course, but Elvis was not an idol. He was anything but. He was hated by parents, he was hated by the media, he was hated by boyfriends. But Ricky Nelson was loved by everybody. He was in our family. Elvis brought rock and roll to awareness of the nation, but it was Ricky Nelson that brought it into the living room. Ricky had more to do with the acceptance of rock and roll in this country than Elvis did. Because everybody accepted it because it was Ricky, and Ricky's part of us. It can't be that bad, so parents accepted rock and roll into their living room with Ricky Nelson. Elvis and Ricky were 1 and 2 as the big players back there. Ricky was always a little behind Elvis in record sales. And it is ironic that they were actually good friends together in real life, and they hung out and socialized a lot together because they both lived in Hollywood at the time. Well, 1964 happened. And 1964 is when the Beatles invaded, and American rock and rollers and that whole scene was kind of swept out to sea. You know, and the show ended. But Ricky Nelson did not want to become just a nostalgia act. He wanted to keep growing musically, and he did. He formed a band called the Stone Canyon Band. And in the 1960s, Ricky Nelson was a great influence in the beginning of country rock in California. He kept musically growing. And then in 1985, of course, the nation was stunned with the tragic plane crash that killed Ricky Nelson in Texas. It was New Year's Eve, and he was on his way to a gig. Ricky Nelson was really woven into the fabric of this country, and he still is. We'll always remember Ricky, and he has so many fans and admirers still to this day. And he is now the topic of your Tuesday morning fun fact. Here's your Tuesday morning fun fact. A family like the Nelsons is going to have a lot of firsts attributed to them because of their unique role in media history. So here are a few of my favorite Nelson firsts. Ricky Nelson was the first person in history to have a #1 song, Poor Little Fool, a #1 TV show, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and a #1 movie, Rio Bravo, in which he acted, all #1 in the same week. And the Nelson family is the first family in history to have 3 generations of #1 hitmakers. The Ozzie Nelson Orchestra had a #1 hit. Of course, Ricky Nelson had many #1 hits. And Ricky's twin sons, who went by the band name the Nelsons, and who took the concept of hair band to a new level, had a #1 hit with I Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection. And I don't know if there's a 4th generation on the way. I haven't researched it, but I will keep you posted. And that's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Let's go back to 1961, one of Ricky's greatest #1 songs. Please don't go away. I'll be right back. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it. I had such a great time just hanging out together. If you'd be so kind, please like the show or like the page if you're watching on Facebook. Share the show with someone you know might like guitar music or a fan of Ricky Nelson, or just share it on your social media. Come back and see me next week. And remember, you're never ready for your day without a song in your heart. Bye now.